So good morning to you. Thank you so much for the invitation to talk with you today. When I look out and I see all of you fellow sloggers through the myriad ups and downs, ins and outs, forwards and backwards of public education and public education policy, I feel incredibly fortunate to be standing here today representing all that you do. I am so proud of my profession, and I feel humbled and grateful to have the opportunity to talk about how hard we all work to create safe, engaging places for children to learn and grow. I feel truly honored to be here with you. So we're here today to talk about education, to talk about teaching. It is a rich and critically important conversation. What constitutes good teaching? What defines a good teacher? These are the quintessential questions of this decade. They are the essence of most political debate around public schooling and the topic many talking heads use to build their reputations. President Obama said in his State of the Union address that we want to reward good teachers and stop making excuses for bad ones. Okay, that's easy. We can all agree to that. So how do we decide which is which? I always tell my students that I'm thrilled with the idea of merit pay as long as I get to decide who's meritorious. So the key question is, how do we define a good teacher? On a cabinet in my classroom stands a unique gift from a former student, a coffee mug. Okay, I know we all receive scores of mugs as trophies for our lives of dedication. But this one I prize above others because it gives the definition of a teacher. Someone who makes sure that when kids grow up, they have the basic math and writing skills to criticize the education budget and write angry letters to the school board. I actually find that definition so astute. This is my job. It is my life's work to teach students critical thinking and research skills so successfully that students are going to challenge my thinking and assumptions with their own carefully considered conclusions. It is my job to teach them to evaluate what I do. So I ask again, what constitutes good teaching? The current trend for policymakers and politicos is to define good teaching based on student test scores, often represented as student achievement or student performance standards. To me, that is intensely distressing because it takes such a minimalist approach to what learning is and what good teaching does. When I talk with students and parents about school and learning, they are seeking a much broader context for education, one with more complex skills, deeper content, and crucial dispositions to learning, far more complex than are measured by our current testing structures. True education is so much bigger than testing. Students understand this. One of my joys as a teacher is that many former students stay in touch and that they have significant memories about their time in my classroom. They return to talk about projects we did. They talk about class discussions we had. They talk about information they learned that gave them a new outlook on the world or allowed them new independence in life. But they never come to talk about how well they did on one of my class tests. They understand that test scores are single frames taken out of a full-length feature film. They take a much broader look at what good education means to them. We need to do the same. Measuring good teaching or good education by very limited testing does significant injustice to education. All of us want students to progress in skills and knowledge, but to reduce the conversation of education and teaching to a conversation of testing is to discuss a child's growth only by measuring his weight. So many other critical factors are being ignored. Like all of you and every educator I know, I am desperate for public education to do well by its students. I believe that a strong education is the path to personal fulfillment, lifetime productivity, and the future of democracy. I believe in good teaching, and I believe in effective, fantastic public education. But I also believe that in today's educational debate, we are often discussing the wrong topics and asking the wrong questions if we truly want to improve public education. The national conversation is all about student testing when it needs to be about student learning. It's about quantifying learning when it needs to be about qualitatively preparing students for life. It's about teachers not doing their jobs well when it needs to be about the conditions in school and teaching that are driving new teachers out of the profession at an astounding rate and are making it difficult for students to learn. It's about how teachers are failing when it needs to be about how our nation is failing to provide for our children and our families. Please do not misunderstand me. I welcome new measures of accountability for schools. I want every single student to leave high school with the skills, knowledge, and dispositions to allow them first to envision all the great things they can do, and secondly, to be successful in whatever way they choose to better the nation and the world. But I am deeply concerned that we are talking about and planning new coursework and strategies for how to help students pass the reading test when we ought to be talking about how to help students learn to read. We are engaged in the wrong conversation. Our discussion cannot be about why Johnny can't pass the reading test. It must be about how much Johnny desires to read. Students do not learn to pass tests. They learn when they perceive a need to know. They learn when they can see how the learning is a passage to their independence and their futures. I am far less concerned that Johnny can't pass the reading test than I am concerned that Johnny doesn't feel compelled to become a highly competent reader. The national conversation about education must be centered not on whether Johnny can pass the reading, writing, math, science, or any other test, but on whether Johnny or Bridget or Lisbeth or Chopin is ready to assume a productive, successful, and fulfilling adult role in our world. We must broaden the conversation about good public schools and good teaching to include the conditions in schools, the messages our society is giving our students about the importance of public education, the workload of our teachers, and most importantly, the joy of learning. To refocus the national conversation requires all of us working together. First of all, we must, through media and our social groups, stand up for public education, for teachers, and for a much broader and more multifaceted conversation. We, in this room, need to help the rest of the nation understand the incredible complexity of what teachers do and the overwhelming and ever-increasing demands of the teaching profession. We need to speak up when the national conversation describes teachers as working few days and short hours. Yeah, really. We need to share our stories and our insights with our neighbors, our representatives in government, and our school boards and administrators. We need you to speak loudly for true breadth in public education. Most importantly, we all need to be strong voices in letting teachers teach. In our current environment, teachers are drawn in so many directions, it is difficult to focus on teaching. Teachers currently have too many jobs. We are administrators, social workers, custodians, nurses, paper flow managers, data collectors, counselors, mediators, community liaisons, marketing specialists, politicians. Teachers need to be able to teach. Teachers need time to teach ourselves. In this world of rich and voluminous data and theories, we need time to learn and think. For many new teachers, after the workload, the most shocking aspect of the profession is its pace. Once you are out of college and into the actual work of teaching, there is little, if any, time for self-education. Teachers need time to research, to learn and assess the new educational ideas, strategies, and thinking that emerge daily. We need time for curriculum planning and for thoughtful innovation. Secondly, if we are to improve education, teachers need time to teach each other. Given the pace and the demands of teaching, we need interaction with each other to challenge us and to re-inspire us. Creativity burgeons with outside input, and we need opportunities to meet together to create that synergy that fills us with multiple ideas and helps us hone them to our individual circumstances. When we teach and challenge each other, we create grassroots enthusiasm that pushes us ahead of mandates and directives. Thirdly, we need to be able to teach our policymakers. Most of the current decision-making in education is done by people who are not in the classroom. More often than not, teachers' expertise is overlooked. Rarely have others asked me what I need to do my job well. But I often hear what others think I need. Teachers need to be invited to the table to discuss educational policy and improvement. We must have conversations with our policymakers to infuse their discussion of schools and teaching with the reality of daily life in the classroom. Lastly, and of course most significantly, teachers need to be allowed to focus on teaching our students. They must be taught to be learners in an age of information. Students must know more than mere content and skills. They must be creative thinkers and innovators. Schools must adapt to being more fluid and personal. Students today are accustomed to unprecedented independence in driving their own lives. They live in a world of constant options for individualization. They can friend and unfriend, customize information flow, and delete it as desired, prioritize their contacts, and message them at any time of the day or night. Today's world offers them choices. They no longer buy albums, they buy songs. School lessons that require all students to do the same things at the same pace, regardless of their personal abilities and inclinations, must seem quaint and obsolete in their vastly personalized world. Schools and teaching must move beyond a one-size-fits-all approach to education and create vectors for students to individualize their learning. So, with all of these considerations, the quintessential question still remains: what constitutes good teaching? I would posit that the answer is joy. Good teaching is that which brings excitement and joy into the classroom and the learning process. Humans inherently love to learn. Learning is almost pure joy. To watch students grasp a concept, begin to apply it to their own lives, begin to analyze how it plays out in a broader world, and step into that world with fresh eyes. That's a joyful experience. It is that moment of enlightenment, that spark that erupts into a flame that draws us repeatedly to the work that we do. Teachers press on, often in the face of overwhelming obstacles, because we know that that moment of joy is just behind the next door, in the next face, and in the next whoop of satisfaction from a student celebrating his most recent achievement. Good teachers foster joy in learning. One of my favorite conversations of this school year was with one of my seniors, a lovely young woman named Areli. In one after-school chat, she said, "Your classes have been my favorites because my relatives all get together and my uncles start spouting off. So now I jump in and I tell them where they're wrong, and they ask me, 'How do you know that? Where did you hear it?' And I tell them, 'In sociology and government class.' And now they let me talk with them." Pure joy. So, what constitutes good teaching? Good teaching is about getting students to want to know what we think they need to know. Teaching is by nature an act of hope and vision. It is intrinsically about the future. It is hugely significant work. Together, we must refocus the national conversation. We must make sure that we're having the right conversation. It must be a conversation of teaching and learning, not of testing and failure. We must talk about the opportunities and strategies that make students want to learn and how to continue to make education a joyful experience. In a recent NPR interview, Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick spoke about his unlikely rise from welfare recipient and inner-city student to second-term governor. He said that the key difference for him was that he had hope for a better future, given to him most of all by teachers. He recalled, "It was my teachers who were affectionate and outwardly expressive about that and encouraging." Good teaching offers more than knowledge and skills. It is so much bigger. It offers enthusiasm, hope, and a vision of a bright tomorrow. As Governor Patrick noted, good teaching changes lives. Let's have that be our national education conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.